Hey everybody, I'm Eric Obrempt, and you're listening to Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. We talk about real shit, what's on our minds, and don't give a fuck if it makes you feel a little uncomfortable. So sit back, strap in, and get ready for some real shit. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I'm your host. We are back today with a second interview. We don't do this very often. Everybody should be very excited. I think I've only done this 3 times. I think I've only brought somebody back 3 times in the history of the show. But this was obviously a no-brainer. We're going to dig into it. I want to thank my sponsors. We're going to drop in with a little thing here, but I really want to thank SMA Support Services for being a sponsor. You guys are amazing. I love you. And Zen. Oh, I don't have my Zen. We're still trying to get Zen. We still want to get Zen for all your nicotine needs. Zen, we love you. Cinnamon's my favorite, even though I can't fucking get it anywhere.
Why don't they call it cinnamon?
Oh, they're going to now. Everybody, Becca Switzer. Becca, thanks for coming back.
Hello. Hey, Eric.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Black Friday vibes.
Sick?
I mean, I'm doing, yeah, literally. I am also sick. Oh, I thought you meant sick like awesome. So that's.
I mean, that is how I talk.
Yeah, I just yesterday I was like, I feel like maybe I'm getting a little tickle. And then this morning before I came here, I was like, there's a Hy-Vee like a quarter of a mile from my friend Johnny's house. So I was like, I'm just going to scoot over there and get some Zicam and zinc and stuff. On my way in, this like homeless lady looks at me. She's like, hey, do you happen to have a cigarette? And I was like, man, she already knows that I sound like I smoke a pack a day and I haven't even said anything yet.
Jesus, where does your buddy live that you're at a Hy-Vee with homeless people?
Well, I don't know if she
Okay.
looked
She
unhoused,
looked
but yeah.
Got it.
I mean, if you're asking to bum a cigarette from me, you're probably.
Yeah, no, fair. You're not doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not doing great.
Yeah.
How long you been in town?
I got in town Wednesday.
Okay, cool. You just got friends here.
Yep.
Yeah, very nice.
my
Good
friends here.
Thanksgiving. This will date the episode, but good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It was a very Czechoslovakian Thanksgiving. His family's Czech, so there was sauerkraut and bread pudding and things. Dumplings. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yep. We have those every Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah.
I
We
love
have a
that.
very Czech Christmas.
Great. I love that.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun. So you reached out to me a while back and said, hey, I'm coming back in November. Like we should do another episode. We had no idea what the fuck we were going to talk about. What's cool though, is that you have been on a little run of fucking free speech shit. And we made our invitation the other day. And what'd you wear? Legalize freedom. Love that. Where'd you get that?
I think this is a JP Sears shirt.
Okay.
Highly recommend. He also has some legalized comedy shirts, which I think is very funny.
Ooh, I really like that.
Can we just like go back to like the 90s, the early 2000s? That was a nice sweet spot for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, you know what I mean? Yeah, I've been on a tear. It's funny. I don't know about you, but I'm 36.
Okay.
I'm not.
I am not
36.
I'm not.
Could you context clues?
Yeah.
I was thinking this morning, I wear like those little eye things at night sometimes now that like don't let you get bags under your eyes.
Okay.
You know? And I was reminded this morning of this card that I found in a greeting card shop one time that said, I used to think that I was tired, but it's been 5 years and I think this is just how I look now. And I was like, that is me now.
This is my face.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, as far as like, I mean, I never really, politics never even was on my radar at all until 2020, like when COVID kicked off.
Oh, sure.
That was the first time that it had ever personally impacted my life.
Right.
Like infringements on freedom, censorship, pharmaceutical tyranny, force. So I was like, so that was kind of a wake up moment for me where I was like, where do I stand on this stuff? And so yeah, ever since then I've been a little bit more involved in educating myself and really speaking out. It's been crazy. Like we seem to have regressed as a nation in so many different ways. We're being taxed more than ever. There's no transparency or accountability in taxation. We've had forced medical tyranny. There's censorship, like our First Amendment rights are being taken away. And that's for me.
Do you think it's worse now, or do you think that you're just noticing it now?
Ooh, I feel like the more divisive issues have started to come up over the last few years, and with social media just becoming our news source.
Yes.
I think it's been getting worse,
Okay.
but that's just because there's a larger scale of it now, right? Everything is accessible online.
Yep.
But there's been a coerced, organized effort to censor and cancel any dissenting voices that go against the mainstream narrative. And it's been like I showed you the other day, I got shadow banned again.
What was that on?
Instagram.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like you're for 90 days. And it's so funny because it actually, I'll pull it up because it was showing me like what it was saying that I was being fact checked on, and I had posted too many things that were proven false or something. And I was like, well, I'm willing to be wrong. Like,
sure,
let me show me what it is. And the first one that came up, I had shared a map that was showing that the only states that Kamala Harris won in, for example, were states that didn't require voter ID.
Mm-hmm.
And it fact checked me. And I looked at the map. So just for everybody that wants to, you probably can't see it here, but I'll show you what I'm looking at. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, I'm willing to be wrong. Show me where my error was. It said, this is false. Kamala Harris won Virginia, which does require voter ID. And I zoomed in, non-photo ID. So I was like, is it really ID if you come and just say, oh, I'm Beyonce Knowles, but I don't have a photo to prove it? So
it was non-photo ID?
Non-photo ID. It was like Kamala Harris, didn't win here. And I'm like, so, but there was no photo
And how many
ID
times
required.
did you post it?
Probably like once, twice. Maybe I shared it on my story. Probably twice.
And that was the post?
Well, that was one of them. And then the other one was, let's see. I have to figure out where it is here. But there was another one that I was like, that also didn't add up. I'm not sure. I might have to figure that one out.
I think that my thought with this is, because I'm 100% on board. Like I totally support everything that you're saying. Like I think that as a country it has become so fucking divisive that and a large reason for that is because of social media, because everybody needs to hear what they believe, and nobody wants to listen to, like you just said, like, I'm willing to be wrong, tell me where I'm wrong, right? Like I still think though there's no way to fucking do this. Well, there is a way to do this. We put people on the moon, but like allegedly, but when somebody quote unquote fact checks you, who's that?
Exactly. Who's fact checking? And on top of that, sorry, I totally cut you off.
No.
Like, okay, so fact checking. How am I getting fact checked for that? Which was like, I wasn't technically wrong, first of all.
Right.
They like dissected it, right? But we have, for example, Barack Obama quoting on national television during an election. He's misquoting once again, like the very fine people quote by Donald Trump. That's not getting fact checked. People are posting that men can get pregnant. That's not getting fact checked.
Right.
Like, or that, vaccines were safe and effective. That's not getting fact checked. Like we have during COVID, for example, people were saying that we're guaranteeing that it stopped transmission of the disease. And yet Anthony Fauci gets it 5 times. And you're like, that's not being fact checked. And it's fascinating because, and maybe I don't know that the left is being censored. It doesn't seem like there's censorship happening on that side. It's literally just,
I would agree with that. I think we're finally getting to a point where they're being embarrassed, though.
Yeah. But do you think that
you know what I mean?
Seeing it? So here's the question.
I do. Here's why I do think so. Because Trump won.
Yeah.
And won so divisive and won so decisively. You know what I mean? So I think that does prove that there's been a shift.
Yeah.
In the country as well. In the fact that they're like, I can't. I listen to Bill Maher a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that he's obviously he's been left liberal his whole career life. Right. And he's gotten to a point where he's like, you guys are always going to continue to lose if you decide to be so far extreme.
Yeah.
Right. And any side that I think that becomes so far extreme on anything is going to end up having the same demise. Right. Yeah. And I think that if the right goes down a lane of too far extreme as well, the exact same thing's going to happen because people are going to get scared of that as also.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that it works both ways and it's cyclical for sure. It
seems to me though, like, and maybe this is just my perception, but it seems like the conservative values don't really change that much. They're usually, it's funny. I think
kind of the definition.
Well, yeah,
of conservative. Like, they don't want to change anything.
Well, think about like Robbie Starbuck the other day was talking about he's just like an influencer guy. He's very political. But his whole thing was he had something to do with like Walmart taking some of the like gender ideology propaganda out of children's books and stuff like that in Walmart And so he like, I think he tries to influence corporations to be neutral, right? Like we're not pushing, this is not the place to be pushing.
Right. There shouldn't be agendas.
Or like radical religion, same type of thing, right? If the left wants to pick on something, and we can talk about that here in a minute too, but it's really interesting. It's like, it seems like the right has always just kind of stayed in the middle, and it's about the preservation of our constitutional rights, like the principles and values that our country was built on, which are amazing for everybody. It doesn't exclude or disadvantage anybody to have 100% freedom of speech, right? The right to bear arms and protect yourself, like the right to be able to pursue happiness, freedom, and liberty, right? Like, so, but the left, yeah, it's fascinating. It seems like almost everybody is socially liberal at this point. Like, have you ever heard somebody talk shit about gay marriage, for example, since like the fucking 80s?
Right.
I haven't.
Right.
And people be like, well, maybe you live under rock. I don't think that I do. Like, I'm on the internet. I've never witnessed like racism, real racism in my life. I've never witnessed somebody being excluded for something because of who they fuck behind closed doors. Like there isn't really any of that, but somehow I think it's the media machine has just turned, it's really leveraged and just baited people on the left to be virtuous. It's under this guise of being like virtuous and compassionate. I genuinely think it comes from a good place. I think it's people that want to feel like they're being compassionate and good, but they're so clickbaited by the mainstream media machine that they don't even know what they're talking about anymore. There's no talk about policy or specific policy. It's all about like, they boil everything down to hate. You hate trans people. You hate
they
gay
boil
people,
it down
you
to how
hate
they
people
feel.
of color, but they have no backing to why they feel that way.
Right.
That's the other fascinating thing.
Yes.
Right.
I agree. Yeah. Because it all comes down to feel. I mean, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but how is it affecting? How is a certain thing? You brought up policy, for instance, right? I think that's really important because people don't talk about policy anymore. Yeah. Right. They talk about how they feel. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, like, I care about how you feel. Right. Obviously. I don't know how we legislate that, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, where does that fit into the law? And it's fascinating because, like, okay, this is a sentence that I hear people say a lot. Like, if they're left leaning, they're like, well, you know, I voted for Biden or I voted for Harris because I've got LGBTQ friends. And I'm like, what does that have to do with voting? Well, you know, people have this like blanket statement that, for example, this is just an example, but Donald Trump just being racist or xenophobic or transphobic or all these things. And I'm like, can you give me an example of that? And then usually they can't give an example. And if they can give an example, it's a misquoted, incorrect contextual piece. Like the very fine people, which this is really funny. So are you familiar with that whole very fine people quote?
Me. So, I'll be honest, I stay out of a lot of it.
You do, yeah. I did
just
for a
because
long time.
Yeah. I stay out of a lot of it because things get misquoted so often. Yeah. Because it seems like 75% of everything you read isn't actually true. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, what am I actually reading, and why am I actually getting involved in this, and why am I actually getting upset? Right. Because I would get really, really, really upset. I would, I would. And it was, I mean, I did a month or two where I completely took all social media off of my phone. Yeah. Like, I got off of it completely, and I had my VAs doing all my posting so that I still had content going out and everything else. But like, I deleted it from my phone so that I couldn't get on. And let me tell you how good I felt. Great. Yeah. Dude, it was amazing.
You have time to do stuff.
Well, but I wasn't angry as much, right? Because it wouldn't even be politics. And I'd get on and I'd see some fucking asshole that I didn't really quote unquote care for, say something that irritated me, and I'm like, argh! And it's like, why am I fucking getting so mad about this dumb bitch that is saying something that you know what I mean? Like, and it got me really fired up. Right. And so like, I don't know if I'm an anomaly or not, but like, I go in like spurts. Yeah. Right. I have little spurts where I'm like, and like, I need to pay attention and I need to feel, and it's almost like I need to feel righteous. Yeah. As well, right? But then I get pissed off because I feel like they're all doing the same. They're doing it because they want to be righteous. And it's like, fuck, I'm doing the same goddamn thing. You know what I mean? So like, that's where I don't know what the word is, but like, that's where the battle is and the dichotomy is for me. Cause it's like, wait a minute, am I doing the same thing? And I have to look in the mirror and make sure that I'm not.
Right. Absolutely.
Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, like, definitely during COVID times, I was way up here. Like I was extremely emotional.
Yeah.
But at that time, we were also being very, very oppressed in so many
We were being
ways.
very, very impacted.
Very impacted,
Yes,
right?
yes, 100%.
And I will tell you, like now, I think I'm just also just personally and emotionally in a better place. But it's like there's also a bias because our side.
Were you scared to death the first month, like everybody else was? Though?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
I fell for it hook, line, and sinker because we didn't know what it was.
Right.
And I was like,
I remember the first time I picked up a gas handle, like at the gas station, and went, "Fuck, am I supposed to?" Like I look back and I'm like, "What the fuck was wrong with me?"
Dude, that was such a weird time. Like, but here's what I started to do, and I gotta credit this. I've always been able to have critical thinking because my dad always challenged my critical thinking. That is one positive thing I took away from my relationship with my dad. Because he was a doctor, and he would. It's funny because I just made a video this morning. I told you I went to Hy-Vee to get like cold medicine and all that stuff, and I was looking at some of the different like zinc things, and one of the packages said may reduce cold symptoms. And then it said clinically tested to reduce cold symptoms. And I was like, that didn't tell me anything. It might have been tested, but it didn't say that it did anything. And it said it may.
It may.
And then I picked up a Zicam swab, which is like the nasal swab. And I know that viruses replicate in the nasal passage. And it said clinically proven to reduce. And I'm like, okay, so this one says something and this one doesn't, right? But during COVID, I remember I was scared for the first month, just like everybody else. And then I started looking at the numbers and I was like, hold on a second. I'm like, so you're saying in my age group, for somebody like me that does not have the average number of comorbidities and COVID deaths, which was like 4 or 5,
right,
which meant you had to have 4 or 5 additional diseases for COVID to kill you during that time. First of all, but I was doing the math and it was literally like the chances of dying were like 1 in 260,000 people or something, or 250,000 people. And I was like, so my odds of dying are like 0.0004%. I like those odds. And then I was like, what they're promoting and saying on the news is not what I'm seeing in like real life. And then I just started challenging that. And then I started looking into who in like one of the inventors of the mRNA vaccine, Robert Malone. I listened to his podcast on Joe Rogan, and then other doctors that were being canceled off of YouTube for speaking up about their findings about early treatment, like the use of ivermectin or there's other hydrochloroquine or something like that. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But these people, these medical doctors, well-researched, well-celebrated medical doctors for the last like several decades were being canceled off YouTube. They were being censored. Their findings were being like mocked. And I was like, why is that? Because they were pushing the vaccine. And then they were not just pushing the vaccine, they were bribing us to take the vaccine. We'll give you free donuts. We'll give you lottery tickets. We'll give you free White Castle burgers. I was like, what universe am I in right now? Have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy or Idiocracy?
Yes.
It literally was that. And I was like, I feel like I'm going crazy. Like it felt like I was the only one in my little circle of friends. At least I was like, is everybody
were you
drinking
alone?
the Kool-Aid at the time? And this would have been like my kind of college group party friend type circle. But again, politics had never come into my universe at all. So that's when also this divide of like, oh shit, I'm in like a group of liberal people.
So did you start losing friends?
100%.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Like close friends.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't say that that's like the only reason, but that was the beginning of a noticeable divide on my side of it anywhere, where I'm like, we don't have so much in common anymore.
So did you, do you think you lost friends because they didn't want to be associated with you and your viewpoints and your talkings, or do you think that you distanced yourself because of the same reason?
I wouldn't say that I distanced myself, but I'll give you an example. Like during that time, because again, it's funny that we're talking about a pandemic, but it was politicized greatly, right? Like one day I received out of the blue, like a 6-page rage email from one of my friends who's like, how could you support a monster? She was referencing Donald Trump. And it's funny because again, she quoted this, she was basing this off of quoting this very fine people quote, which I'll tell you what it was. So it was during like, there were some people that wanted to tear down like a statue that they considered to be racist or something like that. All right.
That was all the rage for a while.
Oh my God. The whole world apparently we weren't racist and now all of a sudden we're racist. Yeah. I was like, is it the 60s again? Like what happened out here? Like the world seems pretty chill. Like when I get on when I walk through the airport or the gas station, like or the grocery store, everybody seems pretty chill with each other. But anyway, it was a quote where Donald Trump was speaking about these people, and he was like, there's very fine people on both sides. And that was the little clip that they just pushed over and over and over. And they thought he was talking about neo-Nazis. And what people say is they go, when he was given the chance to condemn white supremacists, he didn't do it. And even Barack Obama the other day, when like right before the election, he misquotes it too, which again, it's so funny. He didn't get fact checked, right? The actual quote was, he goes, there are very fine people on both sides. And what he said was of the argument. He meant of the argument. And then he specifically, the next sentence, he goes, and I'm not talking about white supremacists or neo-Nazis. Those people should be condemned totally. He literally says exactly the thing that they say that he didn't say. So I get this like crazy email because she's black and just like raged at me. I was like, where did this come from? And I didn't know at the time that quote was wrong either. So,
oh, really?
No, but I was like, well, I'm trying to kind of get my legs here in this whole political thing. This is the first time it's ever become a part of my life. But ever since then, I'm just like, why are they silencing these voices? And why is this information being censored? Why are we only being fact checked? Like,
so why do you think it is?
A deep state political agenda. You know, you've got the people behind. So the deep state would just be people who are, it's funny because people think it's like a big conspiracy, but it's not. These are the organizations behind the government that have all the money, and they push their political agendas with their money so that they benefit from it. Right. Mm-hmm. So pharmaceutical companies are like the most profitable industry in the world. How do you make more money off of them?
But I am watching Landman. That's not true. It's oil.
Say that again?
I said I am watching Landman now. So it is oil. It's not pharma. Right. Yeah, because he does a whole thing of like, anyway, it doesn't matter. But I wouldn't have even known that. But like he goes down as like most profitable, whatever. And he's like, pharmaceutical doesn't even fucking touch us by 30%. I'm like, really? Yeah. Because my first assumption would have been like, pharmaceutical 100%. Right. But anyway, that's nor here nor there.
And I misspoke. That was more of a hyperbole when I said that.
I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. Yeah.
Right. But scare the entire planet into buying your drug.
I think that's the one that gets me the most. I think that's the one that bothers me the most because they have so much fucking power, because they have so much money and they have such a huge lobby that they can do whatever they want.
Lobbying.
Yeah. I mean, they can do anything that they want, anytime that they want, and make people believe anything that they want to make them believe to be able to sell more stuff. And like, that's insane.
100%. And then you tie that into virtue. Well, now you've got a total monster, because what do people do? They're like, well, you're a grandma killer and protect each other. Do your part, right? And it was like, hold on a second. If you even ask questions like, why are we freaking out about, if I'm a young, healthy 32-year-old that has already had COVID, by the way, and has the natural antibodies, right? Why should I have to get an experimental vaccine for something? And there was just no logic in it. If you guys are vaccinated and I'm not, why are you not protected? Why does your vaccine only work if I take one, right? And if masks work, then why the vaccine? If vaccines work, then why do we have to wear masks? I was just asking these questions, just getting shadow banned.
And that's the real issue that I have, that I take with it, is that we're not allowed to ask questions.
Can't ask
questions. And
we're not
allowed, I shouldn't say it not allowed, we do whatever the fuck we want, but nobody was having the conversations.
You weren't allowed to.
Yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. No one would engage in the conversation with you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're allowed to try and have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
But no one would engage with it. Or even if you wanted to have it, you were kind of fearful of having it because of how you were going to be seen or be judged.
Yes.
Right? And what's funny now is that it's flipped, because now you go to the airport or you go and you see somebody that is wearing a mask now in the airport and you're like, fucking weird. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's all totally flipped, but I don't want to feel that way, because I immediately go to, okay, well, maybe he's actually just sick and wants to protect the plane from blah, blah, blah. Maybe he's just got the flu, or, you know what I mean? Like whatever. I didn't know that still existed, but
it went away.
It went away for a year and a half. But I think that's what really gets me. And it's something I talk a lot about. And I don't know if we did on our last episode, but like, I dig into a lot about empathy.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to at least put myself in another person's shoes to be able to understand why they feel the way that they feel about something, even if I completely fucking disagree with it, but maybe I can learn something, right? Yeah. And the problem is during that time of our lives, nobody was open to having the conversation, right? Because you had your feelings and I had mine and this person had theirs, and we wanted to understand more. But it was like, no, you don't get to fucking ask questions because the cocksucker on TV fucking told you what's real.
Safe and effective.
Whoa. I wanted to ask a question. Like, can you give me some more info? No, we cannot give you more information. Well, fuck you then.
And the other issue is it's crazy because it's even worse now, I feel like. And it's not just about COVID. It's
just a good example.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It is. But now it's like even asking a question has become equivalent or equaled with hate. All of a sudden you're just hateful. You're a bigot, racist.
Yes.
It's crazy. And what's really, really fascinating to me is like, it seemed like the just like vanilla ass white, straight conservative person in America became so vilified over the last couple of years. Like,
I mean, I think it's been longer than that, but
the last decade, really.
Yeah.
Which is wild because it's like, man, it seems like these liberal agendas have really regressed us in so many ways. Like now it's not about neutrality. It's not about, hey, we should everybody should have equal rights and equal this. It's like, well, no, somehow you're responsible for something that happened hundreds of years ago. Right. Like, it's just been wild. I could talk about this for like 5 hours. There's so many rabbit holes that we could go down, but it seems like people have dehumanized each other so much over the last few years, and there's no logic. And even if you try to have a logical conversation, you're immediately you're hated. You're discriminated against.
Yeah, I think dehumanizing is a really good way to put it because we do forget that everybody is like, we're all humans.
Yeah.
Right. We understand that we live in a country, in a world that is divided.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yes, go ahead, look at the electoral map and the popular vote and blah, blah, blah. We're still 50-50.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we're still damn near a goddamn 50-50 divided nation politically. Yeah. However, I feel like on 80% of issues, we are not.
Right.
Right.
If you were to take, let's say you took off the red label and the blue label, right? And you really challenged people and you put on a piece of paper the actual issues, like, hey, what do you believe? This is
Yep.
I'm betting the mass majority of people would actually find that they lean toward what would be considered conservative values or like constitutional rights. But we've done, like, society's done such a great job of just politicizing everything to where you don't have to think anymore. Well, blue is my team, red is my team.
Right.
That there's no actual critical thinking about the issues themselves, right? Or the policies themselves. And people just,
it's the reason that I refuse to register with either party.
Yeah.
I refuse to, just out of principle. I refuse to. I'm registered as an independent or a libertarian or something like that. Just out of principle. Like, I've literally never voted. No, I've never voted for anybody that probably wasn't on the right party line, not the correct. I don't think I ever have, but it's just because nobody aligned with me on that side. So I actually took the time to have conversations and try to understand where people, I did vote independent. I did vote for an independent candidate this year against the Republican side.
Yeah.
Right. I did, like, because I actually went and did some research and I was like, I don't like that bitch. Like, I'm not going to vote for her this year. Right. Like, I mean, so like, I actually take the time. I think you're right. I don't think a lot of people do that. I don't think a lot of people, I think they're like, this is my team.
I've always voted Democrat. I'm a Democrat. I'm always going to vote Democrat. And you're like, what? Why?
My grandpa did that.
Yeah.
And my grandpa couldn't have been further from that political party.
Yeah.
And he never voted anyway. He just fucking said he did, but he never actually like went and did it.
Yeah.
But he identified with that from the 50s and the 60s.
Right.
And thought that it was the same now.
Now that's the other thing that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So we have, like, it's so funny because even people that were historically like diehard Democrats, right? Elon Musk, great example. Yep. Joe Rogan, great example. Yep. Tulsi Gabbard. You have these Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's like,
I like him.
he seems just like a really authentic, wonderful human being.
I
love that there's finally, for the first time ever, a concerted effort to ask questions about like what we're doing to our food with chemicals right now.
Yeah.
Like chemtrails in our skies. Like what? That's been a scary thing.
I've been on a really big health kick the last few years, and like that.
You look maybe you've been working out.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
But like that's really important to me.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I think that like nobody's talked about that. We had we had an agenda pushed by food manufacturers in the 60s, 70s, and 80s of fucking bread. That bread is at the top of the fucking food pyramid.
Well, it was the base. It was 7 to 11 servings of carbohydrates
of bread
that we were supposed to eat.
Yes. That's crazy.
That is a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, here's
the question. Did we fucking know that though? Like, did they know that then? I wonder.
Well, look at it like this. Okay, so the FDA is funded, I've heard, between 55 and 75% by Big Pharma.
I believe that.
Big Pharma is funding the majority of the FDA. And I want to say, I have a statistic here somewhere. I think it was 19 out of 20 or something. FDA like officials or something like that went over to Big Pharma between 2010 and 2019. I know I have a screenshot of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I in fact, I grabbed the screenshot because I figured we'd probably end up talking about it. Here we go. Between 2006 and 2019, 9 out of 10, I'm sorry, my numbers mixed up. 9 out of 10 FDA commissioners went on to work for the pharmaceutical companies that were in charge of regulating. Approximately 65% of the FDA's drug review budget comes directly from the pharmaceutical industry.
Did that get fact checked, Becca?
Well, and they have it here. So I've got pictures of like all the ones that switched over, right? Wow. So you have like Scott Gottlieb and Stephen Hahn. I'm probably saying his name wrong. James C. Smith. Name? Like, so Mark McClellan, like everything is just so crap because it's about money, right?
That's an insane statistic.
Yeah. It's like, that would be like the tobacco companies doing tests. They're doing the tests and then going, don't worry, cigarettes don't cause lung cancer.
Right. Yeah, it's the same thing.
It's like, hold on, you did the test and you're presenting selected information, right?
For your narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's going to benefit you and your business and your bottom line. So the FDA is a big machine, right? And it's not for our health. It's who's going to give us money. Yeah, we'll say that these things are not so bad, right? Okay, so I don't know if you saw this, but RFK Jr. got fact checked for something that he used Fruit Loops as an example. He was comparing like the ingredients of Fruit Loops to the ingredients of Fruit Loops in Canada. And he's like,
oh, I heard this. Yeah.
Okay, so this is so funny. So he gets fact checked for it. And what he literally said was, there are chemicals in Fruit Loops here in America that they don't have in Canada. Like, why is that? And it was like, fact check. There are no differences in the ingredients in Fruit Loops in Canada between the US, except for red 40, yellow number 6, and like some other chemical that they list there. Like
except
pH,
for.
And we're like, so it is different. And there are 3 unnecessary chemicals in our food. That's why the whole fact checking thing is just such bullshit. They fact checked it and then said that he was right. They're like, well, this is not right, except for he's right about this, this, and this. 3 things.
When I got really fired up about FDA and pharmaceutical shit was when I went and got my stem cells in Mexico.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand, just because I'm dumb and wasn't educated on it. I didn't understand why. I was like, why am I allowed to go to Mexico and get these type of stem cells that can have this type of impact on my body, repair things, make me feel better, blah, blah, blah. Like, why do I have to fly there to do it? Because if you feel
good here, you're not going to buy our drugs.
Correct. And I honestly like it didn't even register with me. To me, it was just like, well, because you can do whatever the fuck you want in Mexico, right? Like that was my mind, you know what I mean? I just didn't think about it. And I met and actually interviewed the owner of the clinic.
Yeah.
And he told me how his dad was dying of Lou Gehrig's disease. And he's actually from Seattle. And he couldn't get anybody to help his dad with his quality of life at the end other than morphine and, shit like that. Like couldn't actually get him any more time, get him to feel okay and still be able to function and like live a little bit longer, right?
Yeah.
And so he went down to Mexico and found these places that would help them with whether it was stem cells or it was other medical procedures that we couldn't do here. And we got to talking, and I was like, I'm like, I still don't understand. And he was like, well, he's like, it's money. He's like, if we are able to make people feel better and we don't have to sell them drugs and get them addicted to opiates and all this other bullshit, he's like, well, they're not going to make any money. So, and then the FDA's not going to approve our stuff because we don't have a big enough lobby. And so they're going, and I'm like, oh shit.
But
and I had
opiates are legal.
Right.
You can go get hooked on OxyContin if you want.
Legally.
But no, we're not going to let you have stem cells to fix your knee or your shoulder or your back.
Right. Because it's not tested. The fuck out of here.
Right. Like, okay.
That blows my mind.
Ivermectin was being utilized as early COVID treatment, right? And like Dr. Pierre Corey and Robert Malone and all these different people were, Brett Weinstein, they were speaking.
You were good at remembering names.
I was extremely hyper-focused.
I am not good at that, but you are really good at remembering names. That's impressive.
You know what? In general, I'm probably actually not. It's amazing that I can pull those out, but I usually have to take really good notes on things to be able to remember those types of details. But he had like an early protocol for early COVID treatment that using ivermectin. And if you remember, ivermectin got absolutely demonized by the media because it's cheap, extremely effective, and it is something that they use. They're calling it horse dewormer. Well, it is a horse dewormer, but it's also been prescribed billions and billions and billions of times to people of all ages in other countries. It's as safe as penicillin or Tylenol. There are like no side effects.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So
I never had COVID, so I never had to take anything.
Oh my God. I should play what my
I'm that fucking guy.
I should play my my lung sound here for
really?
everybody. Oh yeah, which is so funny because people are like, and you weren't scared. I'm like, well, I'm still not scared. Let's see. Here we go. I'll play it for everybody so we can do it. This is when I had COVID. This is what my lungs sounded like. All I did, by the way, for this, I went okay.
Oh, Christ.
That's probably not good.
Yeah, I sounded like I was out of The Grudge.
Holy shit.
It was not good. Yeah, it was not good.
I forgot what we were talking about. Sorry.
That's fine. We were talking about Fruit Loops for a while, and then we were talking about, we're talking about, it's so interesting how the things that are supposed to promote our health here are literally made illegal or impossible to get. That's why I was talking about ivermectin. I'm like, it's easy, it's cheap, it's safe, right? But that was being blocked. It's interesting though, like why couldn't these companies instead, supplements are not cheap, put that type of money into things like zinc and BPC 157 and NAD plus, or things that extend our telomeres, or you know what I mean? Like ashwagandha or adaptogens. Like there's money in supplements for our health, but probably not as much money as insurance funded cancer treatment, right? If I have to be on that type of a chronic illness schedule, I mean, you know what it's like. If you go to the hospital and you need a Tylenol, they'll charge you fucking $200 for the Tylenol because they're going to charge insurance. It's just this giant corrupt machine.
Wouldn't you think that there would be money in preventative care?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, why not all those supplements that I just listed off, or more like?
Because that's where I spend all my money now.
Exactly. I always say I have probably like the most expensive urine on the planet.
Yes.
I take so many supplements. I don't even know if they do anything.
Yeah.
But it's like those things are not cheap. I mean, I literally probably consume hundreds and hundreds of dollars of supplements per month. Why not shift into that? And you know what? Ongoing fitness, there's no quick fix. That is an ongoing thing. It's not going to be as profitable as chemotherapy. Right. But that's an ongoing thing. Or why can't we incentivize in some way health markers, right? Exercise and like our BMIs and things like that. Like that could be incentivized and profited off of. But it's crazy. And people are fat, sick, lazy, and dumb. And I hate to say that, but that's really like, I look around, I'm like, what is happening to humanity right now? Well,
no, I think you're right. I think they're uneducated, and then they think that they're educated because they saw something on
a headline on CNN.
Yeah, and I think that's the frustrating part.
Yeah,
right, is because people now that I think about it, that's the really frustrating part because people think they're educated.
Right.
But they're not. They haven't actually done any type of research.
Absolutely.
They're just being prodded and poked.
Propagandized.
And fired up. And I think that probably goes on both sides.
100%.
Right? I mean, as well. Like, I mean, it 100% works on both sides. But how do we get... I get frustrated because most of these conversations are about how the other side is wrong.
Right.
But usually the conversations don't go to solutions.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's just like in any business, anybody brings you a fucking problem inside of your business. You're like, cool.
Yeah.
How are you going to fix it? Right. I understand this is not a thing. Like we're on a national worldwide scale of like Becca and Eric aren't going to fix it today. Right. Like I totally understand that. But like, I wish that more people's conversations would go to the things that would open up more conversations so that maybe it'll never be fixed, but maybe it can get better.
And I think just helping each other, you're exactly right. And I will say like back during COVID times, I was really outspoken, but I was also like an asshole about it. You know, I would post things and I would just put a bunch of clown emojis, basically calling people stupid. Right.
Yep.
And I realized that came from a place of just being frustrated about how stupid I really thought that everything was. This time around, as like things have become politicized in different ways, I was like, you know, I want to approach this differently because I know that if I want anybody to see a different point of view, I'm not going to get there by being an asshole. Like, I'm not going to get there by making people feel stupid for thinking the way that they do. And Joe Rogan made a great point. One of his stand-ups, he's like, you know, I bet if I was you and I lived your life, I would think exactly like you. And if you were me and you lived my life, you'd think exactly like me. Right? So everybody, it goes back to empathy. When you're mentioning empathy, it's like we all are a product of our environment and nature and nurture. And we've arrived to where we've arrived honestly, right? And so that's why I think it's so important that we do speak up though, even if it's not popular, even if you're going to lose friends or family, even if people are going to call you a grandma killer or a bigot or a racist or a Nazi, which is so crazy that people are doing that, which is so ungrounded to say about people now. But it's like, if you don't do that, everybody does what they did for the last 4 years, which was like hide and be quiet.
Yep.
You know? Like, it was so fascinating to me to see the map of the voters like light up 97% red, right? During the election. And I was like, holy shit, I feel like a closeted conservative that just was able to come out of the closet all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll tell you one thing, like, this is my personal journey into this. So I realized that I straight up had like Trump derangement syndrome back in 2020. Okay. And it's funny because an ex of mine challenged me one day. So this was during COVID. I did not realize that I had somehow, without even noticing it, I'd kind of gotten brainwashed into this like left liberal thinking pool. Not that I was actively involved in any politics or anything like that, but somehow I found myself having certain opinions, orange man bad, right? Type of a thing. And when COVID happened, so my ex had he got a mask. Everybody had to wear masks, right? And it was like Donald Trump's mouth and it just said China because he was always talking about like suggesting. That was another thing you got censored for. If you suggested that the coronavirus came from the coronavirus lab
right
in Wuhan, canceled, right? But I like lit up on him one day. I was like, you know, that's really offensive and blah, blah, blah.
Did
like
you really? Did you do an offensive thing?
Oh, yeah.
Ew.
I know. I told you I had TDS. I am here to tell you. I know. It was bad.
That's fucking gross. Sorry, go ahead.
Bad. No, it's okay.
There's nothing that makes me more angry than somebody that says that they were offended.
I know.
Fucking get over it.
Well, I was not personally offended, but I was like, you know, that seems, I turned it into the same thing that the left would do. Oh, that's hateful toward Asians, for example.
Right.
Which I think Asians are like the most liked population. Remember when Stop Asian Hate was a thing? I was like,
I mean, aside from their driving ability.
Right.
Yes. Aside from that, like, yeah. Well, yeah, good point. Yeah.
Right. I was like, I've never seen anybody hate on an Asian. Like, Asians are like kind of the coolest, most likable group. But anyway, I digress. Right. So I like sent him this message and I was like, you know, it's just really offensive and it's insensitive to Asians and blah, blah. And he wrote me back and I'll never forget what he said. He's like, you are he's like, you're telling me that I'm not thinking for myself while simultaneously telling me how to think. And I was like,
ooh,
fuck.
That was really good.
I know. And I was like, damn, I am doing that. And I sat down. I will never forget this. I sat on my couch and I took a pencil.
Pull that quote, Lexi. Fucking pull that quote and put that in an image. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And I was like, damn. But again, you have to be somebody who's willing to be wrong, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of those moments that just the right thing was said where I was like, he's right. I was like, why do I think that? Why do we even have these thoughts? And I sat down, and what I started with Donald Trump because that was the most polarizing thing at the time, right? I sat down and I said, I wrote, why do I think Donald Trump is bad? And I was like, I literally could not. I'm like, well, people say he's racist. And I go, why do they say he's racist? Couldn't come up with anything. And I was like, they say he's xenophobic. Why do they say he's xenophobic? Couldn't come up with that. Well, he says that. And I sat there and I literally realized I could not come up with a single valid, real, logical reason that I somehow had adopted those viewpoints. That blew the doors off everything for me. Because I was like, holy shit. I realized like I literally got brainwashed. And then I started unraveling. I was just pulling the thread. Okay, well, they say that he said this. And I watched the full video. I was like, oh shit, he never said that. Holy fuck. Now what? And then you start pulling the thread here and here. And all these things start unraveling. And that went into the COVID stuff too. Okay, well, who funds the FDA? Who's doing these tests? Oh my God, it's big pharma.
You really did go
Holy
down
shit.
rabbit holes, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And it's funny because like I have a hard time retrieving like really specific information. That's why I write so much stuff down so I can actually go back.
You do write a lot of stuff down, don't you?
Yeah. I'm like, good. I sourced this. This is where I got this. Yeah. These are the actual statistics. This is the triple blind test that was done. These are the people who funded it. Like you have to start, you can't be lazy if you're going to have strong opinions. Because if you are.
Yeah, no, correct. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I realized like I had these strong opinions and I had no
That's another really good quote. You can't be lazy if you're going to have strong opinions.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right? Like you can't. Because where are you getting this information? And so now I'm like, okay, but I still have to, because you're right. It's both sides, right? Like the right could say something. And if I just take it at face value because, I generally like what this person says without fact checking, right? But that's the trouble with like it's social media and everything now. You can't even, if you look for information, everything is so biased unless you get on X. Elon Musk literally saved the First Amendment by not censoring and suppressing information that goes against the mainstream media. But again, what does the left do? They label it as dangerous, reckless, misinformation, right? And it's like, that's really fascinating because all the stuff that you called misinformation 2 years ago came out as fact now. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I think just to go on that, I think that's the scariest thing of all, that everybody on the planet, doesn't matter if you're conservative, liberal, or libertarian or anything, like the First Amendment rights, freedom of speech is the most important thing that we absolutely have to protect to the death.
Well, what did we learn when we were kids? I learned when I learned about the First Amendment and we watched we all saw the little guy that goes up the stairs to the Capitol and they teach what a law is. And you remember that little video and all that? Do you?
Vaguely.
You don't.
Vaguely.
But
you don't. I'm lying.
You don't. Yeah, I can tell you don't. But I remember being told when we were being told about the freedom of speech is that it's not to protect what you believe. It protects everything that you disagree with.
Yes.
Because one day you're going to be the person that's disagreed with, and that's why it's there.
Yes.
And I think I don't think that is being taught anymore anywhere. That's what I worry about because and it was explained to me when I was very young that it is literally to take it to an extreme, right? Just so that it plugs in.
Yeah.
Is that freedom of speech is there so that a fucking piece of shit racist neo-Nazi can still say whatever they want to say.
Which is their right.
Because it's their right to be able to do it. Here, it's not their right other places.
Right.
But it's because one day we might be seen as something different than what we are seen as today.
Right.
And so as long as that right is preserved, we will at least still have the right to be able to say what it is that we believe. Whether it's right or wrong, we still have the right to say it.
Because, yeah, exactly. Like, it's really convenient when you're on the side that's like, well, shut up everybody that you disagree with. Like, for example, the last 4 years, right? Or the last 8 years, you had the left liberal media pushing their propaganda and their opinions, and the right was absolutely, like, actively censored or suppressed on social media. You didn't have a voice, right? And if you did have a voice, then you got canceled, or you were called a Nazi or a XYZ phobe, insert any insult, right? That's really convenient when you're on the side that's not being shut up. Those same people should be absolutely terrified watching the conservatives be silenced, because what happens when the tables turn? It's not going to be this way forever. What about when your opinion is now being suppressed? Let's say that you're a really hardcore pro-choice person. What if you start getting censored? Okay? Like, that's terrifying. That should be terrifying to everybody. I think it's Thomas Jefferson who says, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
Yeah.
And that is critically important.
Yes.
Because as soon as if we lose that right, we can't change anything.
Yeah.
There's no more changing our world. You know what I mean?
Well, there was every year, whoever is the minority in Congress tries to pass a law to abolish the filibuster. Do you know about this?
No.
Okay. Do you know what filibuster is?
No.
Okay. So a filibuster is basically when they can go in, and I forget if they do it in the Congress, if they do it in the House or the Senate. So I'm retarded, but it's one of them. And that you can go in and, like, if somebody is proposing a law that you completely disagree with and you want to be able to fight it, but you know that you don't have the votes to be able to to make it lose, you can literally, if you go on the floor, and I might be telling this a little bit off and wrong, but you can go on the floor and you can talk forever. And so, but you can't take a break. You can't take a piss. You can't go get anything to eat. You can't take a recess.
Yeah.
Right. But, like, if you can talk long enough to get it to end the session.
Right.
And then come back the next day, there's people that have, like, done this for days and days and days on end so that a potentially harmful bill can't get through.
Okay.
And they'll do it maybe at the end of a session when Congress or the House is going to retire.
Okay.
Right. For a certain amount of time. And so when Democrats were still in power in the Schumer in the House or the Senate, I can't remember, but Schumer was all about getting the filibuster eliminated. He wanted to put a vote, and he had the votes to be able to do it. And he was fucking like, rah, rah, fuck you, we're going to end this. And all of a sudden, the election happened, and there's really funny articles that you can read on this. The election happened, and we won the Senate, we won the presidency, and all of a sudden he was like, now, Republicans, you would be wise to, like, come to the middle, and, like, we don't want to vote against a filibuster. Like, so, like, literally from 2 months prior to now, he went, whoa, I'm on the other side of this now. I would never think to vote against being able to have a filibuster, because now he's on the side that needs to be able to have it.
Right.
Because something might come through that he doesn't like.
Right.
And he wants his colleagues to be able to use this tool.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the exact same thing with the freedom of speech. What I'm trying to bring around, like, it's voting on a policy that you don't realize, like, yeah, you win today, but you will eventually fucking lose tomorrow because you're not having the foresight to understand that you're not always fucking right. Sometimes you're fucking wrong.
Right.
I'm wrong sometimes.
Same.
Right? Like, I know that I've said things that were fucking wrong. I probably just said something now that I'll get chastised and be like, you didn't explain that correctly. Right.
Fired,
but I understand the goddamn, like, the purpose behind it.
Yeah.
So if we're not thinking about that, if we're only thinking about ourselves and we're not thinking about other people at all, you've completely lost what the Constitution is about and what the Bill of Rights is about.
And that's why it's so frustrating that somehow constitutional rights, which are for everybody, they protect everybody. It doesn't matter what.
Now.
Right? Well, it's like somehow those became politicized to be like radical, extreme right-wing values. And it's like, do you guys know what the Constitution says? Like, it's the most, it protects everybody in our country. and gives us privileges, no matter what color you are, what race you are, creed you are, sexual orientation you are, gender you are. It protects us in a way that no other country on the planet protects people. And we need to be absolutely relentless about protecting those rights, especially freedom of speech, because there can be no change in the future of any kind for either side if we don't protect that.
Is there any country in the world that has that, the freedom that we have?
No. Okay, so get this. In Britain, people are getting arrested for posting Facebook posts that are dissenting to the mainstream political narrative. They're going to jail for making Facebook posts. People in, I want to say Scotland, are being arrested for praying within 200 meters of an abortion clinic. You cannot silently pray outside of an abortion clinic within 200 meters. You will get arrested. These are real stories, by the way. I'm not making this up.
It's very real.
Like, and now we have, you know, you've got like the blue-haired person screaming at somebody with a MAGA hat on in front of a post office. Do you want to protect your right to do that? It's your right to scream at me. If I have a Trump t-shirt on and you don't like that, you can scream at me. I'm going to be fucking annoyed.
Yeah. Right.
Right. But I will defend to the death your right to do that.
Yep.
Right. Because you don't agree. Okay.
Right.
That's fine.
But they will not.
They will not.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the real difference comes into play, because as soon as you do identify that, that's when you realize that we do have more in common than we have difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating.
I think.
Yeah.
If you're serious about getting your time back and scaling your business, then SMA Support Services is your secret weapon. I use SMA for all of our support and admin tasks. Everything from back office management, day-to-day admin, even a call center. Their team frees up my staff to stay focused on high-level, revenue-generating activities. And that, let me tell you, is a fucking game changer. SMA isn't just support. They're a partner that keeps our operations running smooth and efficiently. So if you want to focus on growing your business and leave the support work to the pros, hit up SMA Support Services. All right, we're back now. It's part 2 of the Becca Switzer interview. We decided to take a little piss break and wanted to figure out what we could talk about on the second half of this interview. And we came up with a bunch of really offensive ideas. Becca, go. No.
Well, let me start. Yeah, I'm willing to offend.
Yeah.
I'm willing to be wrong and I'm willing to offend.
Were you always that? You were not like that before,
Probably
though.
not. No. No, I think I've always been very hard-headed and opinionated. But if proven wrong, I'll say if proven wrong, I've always been willing to be like, oh. But typically, I think
in private.
I wouldn't say that necessarily.
I'm just asking. Yeah, I'm not making statements. I was just curious because, like, when you start a business too, in the beginning, you're like, "Ooh, everybody's my client."
Right. Oh, I never felt that way.
You never felt that way?
I never gave a fuck.
Because a lot of people do.
So that's another really funny thing. Like, I understand. I've had so many people message me over the last like couple of years, especially when I'm kind of like on one of my tirades about like, you know, talking about freedom or liberty or whatever. 97
stories in a row.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I understand that it's a little bit crazy. I have a bit of a crazy affect. But so many people message me and they're like, thank you so much for saying and sharing these things, because I feel that same way. But if I were to post that, like, I could get fired. I would get canceled. I would have and I'm like, I'm in a really fortunate. That's why I take this responsibility. I feel like it's a responsibility. I'm in a place where who's going to cancel me, right? I run my own business. I'm also fortunately in a pretty blue collar industry, the roofing business, but I'm like a sovereign individual here. Like if my business tanked tomorrow, I'm still good.
Right.
Like, I've put myself in a position, and I'm not saying that to be like conceited or arrogant at all. I understand that I'm in a position where I'm uncancelable.
Right.
Right. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to speak up about things that matter to me. And I really don't care who thinks that I'm wrong, offensive, or calls me a name, because they probably don't know me. It's
what
really,
would you do if you got canceled and you couldn't sell any more sales mastery system stuff?
Specifically roof sales stuff. I mean, I would probably, like, I'm doing this right now. I'd be writing books about my success journey anyway, like how I built, how I monetized my expertise in an industry that I had no clue what I was doing. I'm actually doing that right now as we speak anyway. But, you know, I think there are types of people that it doesn't matter if you like cancel them or
no, I agree. I agree with you.
They're going to come back up, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the whole idea that if you were to take all of the wealth in the world right now and distribute it evenly between the currently poor and the currently rich, and you gave everybody the same start, the rich would become rich again, the poor would become poor again.
Yeah.
Right? It's that same type of a thing. So I don't know. I'd probably be speaking, writing, selling things. I mean, the same stuff.
Selling things.
Good at selling stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should talk about Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So
I want to know more about this.
Yeah.
I know just enough to be dangerous, but like, yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the fact that the government was created to serve the people. We forget that, right?
Yes.
Now we're like, oh, they're the overlords, right? But it wasn't supposed to be like that. That's why people...
It's my understanding that the government started to defend our borders from foreign wars,
yes,
and to build roads.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Absolutely, okay. Right? It was supposed to be for foreign and fiscal policy, infrastructure, keeping our country safe, right? But it has turned into, there's something like 450 federal government agencies managing us for what?
Which mostly happened during the Great Depression, if I'm not wrong.
I don't know about that. I
think, well, so I mean, that was when Social Security started. That was when like government programs really started because of the Great Depression and because like people were jumping off of fucking buildings and didn't know what they were going to do. And so who was it? Was it Roosevelt or who was the fucking president then? I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. But that president at that time then was the one that enacted Social Security. And that was when government programs started. There weren't a lot of government programs.
Right.
Prior to that, it was all started in the early 30s after the Great Depression.
But now you have 450
right.
that are all like overlording everything, and it's just bureaucratic red tape over.
You looked very surprised that I knew that, by the way. Your face was like, huh. I have people look at me a lot. They're like, I really thought you were retarded, but you're actually not retarded.
I actually am smart.
Sorry.
No,
go on. You're correct. 450. Is that what the number is?
Something like that. And it's funny because I only know that because Elon Musk started looking into it and he was speaking about it and he goes, they don't even know. They don't even know how many federal agencies that they have, right? But the more government you have, the bigger and bigger and bigger that federal government gets, the more taxpayer dollars you need to fund it.
Right.
You have all these jobs and roles and you're making it harder for the citizens to create a living, all that stuff. So we look at that and we go, we've gone so far from what the purpose of the government was supposed to be. And that's why our country even came to be, right? Like they rebelled against Great Britain because taxation was theft and there was way too much government overreach. And we wanted to have a country that was for we, the people. And the government was supposed to be limited and all this stuff. Okay. So now we get to a point where look around today. Our government is literally printing trillions of dollars, right? Making our dollar worth almost absolutely nothing. And for those of you who are not familiar with how like this works, so our money used to be based off of the amount of gold reserves that we had, right? So a dollar bill represented a certain fraction of the gold that we had. Well, if let's say that we started with, these are not the right numbers. Let's say that we started with $1 trillion in paper money and that represented the gold that we have. Okay, but then we print another $1 trillion. So now we have $2 trillion. Well, now our dollar is worth half of what it was, right? Mm-hmm. And now we print more. So our government is just printing and printing and printing money, driving the value and purchasing power of our dollar down. And at the same time, they are spending trillions and trillions of dollars on Lord knows what. Mm-hmm. And yet we still have holes in our road, right? It's like, where are our taxpayer dollars going? Every single year they push to charge us more and more taxes. Okay. And yet our country is almost bankrupt and our dollar is worth less than it ever has been before. Where is the accountability? Okay. Why aren't we allowed to see what our government is spending our money on?
Right.
If you were running a business and your CEO was bankrupting your country and you were not profitable, what would you do?
You would fire that CEO.
Well, you would fire the CEO, but you'd also be like, show me where the money is going.
Of course.
Show me where it's going.
So show me the books.
If you or I, as a citizen of this country, get our tax return wrong by a penny or a nickel, we could literally go to jail. Mm-hmm. We go through a whole auditing process. It's a living fucking nightmare. Mm-hmm. The US government has failed the last 7 audits. There are like $824 billion unaccounted for just for the last year. Unaccounted for.
Here's the thing, though. That doesn't surprise me.
Of course it doesn't surprise you.
Right.
But that's a problem.
That's what I'm saying. That is a problem.
That's a major problem.
That it doesn't surprise me.
Where's this money going? Okay, so for the first time ever, what DOGE is going to be, which is such a hilarious name, but because of the Dogecoin, but it's the Department of Government Efficiency that's going to be run by Elon Musk and that Indian dude. I can't think of his name.
I like him.
Vivek.
Yeah, Vivek. There you go.
So for the first time ever, they're going to be making as public as humanly possible the government spending record. We get to see where our tax dollars are going instead of sending $200 billion to Ukraine, right?
Right.
So we get to see where it's going. Well, if there's accountability and transparency, there can't be as much riffraff, right? Like they can't just be sending money to things that they don't need. And here's some examples. And this is why so these are some things that they uncovered. So in 2023, they spent $33.2 million under the guise of the NIH, the National Institute for Health, to house, feed, and look after monkeys in South Carolina, who were then sent to labs for medical research. They spent $6 million to promote tourism to Egypt. That was your and I's tax dollars?
Good.
How did that benefit us?
Good.
They spent $8,395 on a lobster tank.
For who?
Okay. They spent $477,121 to study HIV in transgender monkeys.
What?
That's what I said. Okay.
That can't be real.
This is real. They spent that was by the...
What is a transgender monkey?
That's what I'm saying, dude. It's the stupidest fucking shit. Imagine you're just like a rich kid and your parents just pay for everything and you're like, what should we do with our money? Right? And you just start doing, it's like the Wolf of Wall Street type thing. They're like, let's do midget bowling, right? That's what they're doing. Okay, they spent $200 million in COVID relief to major music acts and their touring companies, including Post Malone, Chris Brown, Steve Aoki, and Smashing Pumpkins. What about the small businesses that shut down, like mom and pop that were trying to have a barbecue joint that literally they forced them to close and they went bankrupt? But Post Malone or Chris Brown, who are billionaires, get COVID relief, right? But that's where our tax dollars have been going. So here's another one. In 2020, the U.S. government, by the way, 2020, this was when apparently we were in a crisis, right? The U.S. government spent $4.5 million to spray alcoholic rats with bobcat urine. That was an experiment.
They spent how much?
$4.5 million to spray alcoholic rats. So rats that they made dependent on alcohol with bobcat urine.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Could
you please find out why for me?
Why were they doing that? There was something like Japanese quail. They were giving like alcohol to fish and like doing experiments to see if they become more aggressive to other types of fish, drinking tequila. These are real experiments.
This is the first time in my life that generally you'd have this conversation, because this isn't the first time that like this conversation has come up of like we have unwanted spending, right? Not the first time. That's been going on for decades, right? But there's never been another time in my life where I've ever sat there and went, this guy might do something about it.
Yes.
And I don't even mean Trump. I mean Musk.
Yeah.
Right? I think he will absolutely go in. Like, I mean, he did it with Twitter, right?
Yep.
And just fired fucking everybody. And he's like, we don't need
these people.
We don't need all these people.
80% of the people at Twitter were not needed, right? It's like unnecessary. But I remember, here's a lesson I do remember from school, which is so funny. You're talking about like the guy going up the stairs. I didn't remember that, even though I feigned that I did.
You really did.
Like,
you really tried.
I was kind of just like, no. So I remember my teacher, Mr. Miller, saying, he was giving us a lesson and he goes, government has a budget. And if they use the money in the budget, then they can keep that budget the next year. Or if they spend more, they can get more. But if they spend less, they can't go backwards. Like,
so they have to spend it. Yes.
So he goes, so the government, you might go to Home Depot and buy a hammer for $15. The government is going to go buy that same hammer and spend $400 on it. Right?
Because they want to keep their budget for the next year.
Because they want to keep their budget. So they have to spend this money. And it was like, there were warehouses, like tens of thousands, if not like hundreds of thousands of square feet warehouses that are just completely unused, that are government buildings that are still being heated and cooled and leased. And we're paying for that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because like I look at the first year that I had my business by myself, like when I ran my online business, I had to write a check to the federal government for $350,000 in taxes.
Jeez, you're rich.
Well, my business has no overhead, right? I have an internet business, so I also don't have like the same types of write-offs.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, holy fuck.
Right.
And that was like 2000, I want to say 18 or 19 or something like that. And I was like, this matters. Where is this money going?
Right.
And when you look at something like this and you go, okay.
That should infuriate everyone.
That should fucking make you mad.
That should not have any party lines.
Yes.
That should have absolutely nothing to do with red or blue. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this and that doesn't make you mad, you're like, there's something fucking wrong with you.
Right.
There's something wrong with you.
Like to look at that money and go, I funded a sex change for a prisoner. I funded 11 million illegal immigrants coming into our country that are relying on government social services but people in South Carolina are citizens who lost everything in a hurricane, say they get $750 from FEMA and say
no one talks about that one.
Oh, and that they were purposely skipping houses with Trump signs out front. Did you know that?
No one talks about that.
I know. It's crazy. Like that
was not on the news.
Of course it
I
wasn't.
had friends that lived out there and they were like, dude, this shit is not getting reported.
Yeah.
And they started sending me videos and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I haven't seen any of this. And they're like, I know.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm here. Look at this fucking video. And I'm like, how is that? How is everyone not outraged at what is like the things that people lost during that time?
I mean, they lost everything. And guess who didn't show up? It wasn't FEMA that came out and like fixed roads and shit like that. It was the redneck neighbors who had backhoes and big trucks and shit like that. Like people, again,
they didn't get reimbursed.
Exactly.
They didn't have a budget.
Dude, I'll tell you, like, it's funny because I get that on a really tiny scale. I live really, really remotely in Colorado, up a really steep dirt mountain road, and I'm really not doing it justice. It's violent. Every time people drive up it, if they even can get up it, they're like, you weren't kidding. But when shit goes down, the county doesn't come up and clear our road. They don't touch it. They don't fix it. They don't plow snow. But I've got redneck neighbors who have backhoes and big ass tractors, and I own a tractor as well now. But it's them. They're coming out and helping each other, Yep. And it's like, are you going to see your liberal friends coming out and do that with their fucking
with their Prius,
their vape and their Prius? Yeah, exactly. It's so crazy.
They're not.
But so.
And that's community.
That's community for sure.
Yeah. And we've lost a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've lost a lot of that. I could go down a rabbit hole with that. Because I think that that's also part of the downfall of what's happening. Because I think in community, you actually do talk.
Right. It's your real person.
Yeah. Like you're having real conversations with people and it's not just, well, I saw this on the news. It's like, hey, this happened down at the local mill. You know what I mean? Right. Whatever. Like that's a terrible example, but people are actually like having real conversations with people. And I think that's, we're missing a lot with that.
Yeah. That's what's kind of scary is like, just because everything has become digitized, right? It's like, we don't feel each other's human connection on the internet. And everybody's just on the internet. So we're losing that like connection with real human beings and seeing somebody as a real human being. And instead it's like this experience of, oh, maybe you've known somebody for 15 years, but then you see on social media that they share something politically different from you and all of a sudden you hate them.
Yep.
And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What about the last 15 years of friendship?
I think that all of these movies that we've watched in the past where, and I never really thought about it, but how many movies have you watched where it's a futuristic movie, but the future is basically 500 years ago?
See, on Apple TV with Jason Momoa?
Yes. Okay. Yes, exactly. Okay. I think this is how we get there.
Right. Yeah. It's really fascinating. Okay, so the other day I was on a walk and I haven't watched that show now in a couple years. It's called See. It's on
really
Apple TV.
Show.
Yeah, it's really good. But I realized it was a huge metaphor. So in that show, it's the future, but it's like dystopian, right? Everything's become very primitive because the world has collapsed and all that stuff. Well, they're in a society where almost everybody is blind. But there are children emerging, like Jason Momoa. It's not even his kids, but his wife ends up having these twins, a boy and a girl, and they can see. but people who can see in this society are considered witches. And there's this huge witch hunt. And they're even burning books and things so that they can't learn about history or get any new skills. And the other day I was walking and I was like, holy shit, that's a major metaphor. The people who can see, who are awake, right? They're seeing. Most of the world is asleep. They're blind. And the people who can see are considered witches, and they're being hunted and destroyed, and their books are being destroyed and all that. And I'm like, holy fuck.
Shit, was that on purpose?
I think so. It probably was. I was like,
I feel stupid now because I didn't see that.
Well, I didn't either. I was literally walking. I don't even know how that came into my, I was just like walking and it like hit me and I was like, oh, I literally did that out loud. I remember I go, oh. I was like, oh shit. Because that's what's happening, right? Like now we have people for the first time kind of uprising, like in our generation anyway, rising up and speaking out against this status quo and challenging things that are seemingly unpopular, right? Like propaganda is being shoved down our throats, and everybody seems, not everybody, a large population seems to be very asleep to this, right? They're fighting to have freedoms taken away even. They don't want freedom of speech. They want censorship, right? So it's fascinating that the people who are speaking up and questioning that are being demonized, vilified, canceled, silenced. And it's like, it's a witch hunt.
But that, you know, if you think about it too, though, that's how it's always been.
That's also true in different cycles.
Yeah. Like anytime anyone speaks up to open up dialogue and have conversations, they're always vilified because it's not the status quo and it's not the thing that everybody thinks that they agree. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's it's how it was when the country started. Yeah. You know what I mean? To go back that far, right? True. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like, to your point, like we came here to get rid of that oppression. Yeah. Right. And now we are the people that we didn't want to be. Exactly. We've regressed in such a huge way in a number of ways, right? Like, and that's really what I meant. I didn't mean for the first time ever. What I really meant was for the first time in my adult experience, I've noticed that. Yeah. Yeah. But you notice it now, you see it, and then and history obviously repeats itself. I mean, that's, how many times have you heard that? Yeah. But like when you really look at it, it's like, oh shit, it really fucking is. Yeah. Right. And people are finally starting to step up and be like, stop it. Dude. It was a huge relief this election really meant a lot. And I had a good feeling about it going in anyway. But it was such a relief. Not. Really? No. You want to hear something funny? Just because I felt like there was just, I don't know. I didn't have a good feeling. I did. And also this could be a whole other conversation. So I have like prophetic dreams where I dream things either that are actually really happening with very specific details in real time or things that are going to happen. And a couple. You're a witch. Yeah, that's all my friends say. It's so funny. I've been called a witch many times. But I had a dream a couple months before the election that I was in like a mall and I was working I found myself working in a restaurant, like a fast food restaurant. So out front there was like a area that had tables and chairs, and so I find myself there. I was like, oh, I guess I work here now. And there were people arriving up front to get tables and to order food and stuff. But whoever was supposed to be the hostess and the waitress, they like were not engaging. So I was like, I'll just fill in for right now. So I go out front and there's like this table of frat boy type people. And I walk up and I go, hey guys, are we celebrating anything tonight? And one of the people just starts ordering appetizers. And I say, oh, you must not have heard me. I said, are we celebrating anything tonight? And the guy like lights up. He goes, oh yeah, second chances. And he was talking about Donald Trump. And then for some reason I like turn around and I yell into the kitchen. I go, the dawn. It was so funny. And I woke up from that dream and I'm like, I think Donald Trump is going to win this election. Oh my God. And then he did. But yeah, it was a really, like for me personally, I was like, man, it was a moment where I'm like, not everybody is as disconnected from truth and the desire for liberty as I thought, because the media did a really good job making people with conservative values feel like they were this small in like a little red dot in a whole sea of blue. And to be clear, when you say that term, because I think that term gets a bad rap, when you say conservative values, that immediately triggers the word hate. Right. That's not what it means. Right. Yeah. And I think that I don't know why I feel like that needs to be said, but like that triggers the word hate. Yeah. And it's not like, it's not at all. It's so weird. But again, that's like the media messaging, right? Yeah. I just don't think that's fair. Like, here's something that I had posted.
on my Facebook. It was about like, okay, so one of the things that a knee-jerk reaction that the left will have if you are right-winged in any way, right, is they'll say, well, they're transphobic and this whole administration is anti-trans. This is just an example, okay? Yeah. And something I said, I was like, do you think it's possible that people who voted for Donald Trump, for example, or voting conservative don't actually have anything against somebody being trans? Do you think that they might have voted for a secure border so that there's not 11 million illegal immigrants? And do you think that that might not have anything to do with race at all? It's about illegal people entering the country illegally. Yeah. Do you think that it might not have anything at all to do with hating trans people, but they might not want their 7-year-old to be exposed to radical gender ideology in school? You know, it's like there's all these different things that don't have anything to do with what people are making it about.
Because nobody asks.
Nobody asks. And if they do, they give you like a blanket statement about why it's anti-something, right? I made another post that I was like, okay, let's just say, like, let's talk about gender ideology for a minute. So let's say that like you have kids, and you do, and they go to school, and all of a sudden at school one year, they decide they're going to start pushing a really radical religious ideology. And by the way, I'm not picking on Western or Southern Baptist at all, but let's just say, because people understand what that is, like very like radical, right? So let's say your kid goes to school, and suddenly that's like the agenda there. They're pushing this radical religious agenda on them. And you don't have anything against Baptists, but your family's not particularly religious. That's just not something that you really need or want your kid to be learning about at school. Well, then the school starts pushing to allow them to convert, right? Maybe they can go to school and get baptized without parental consent or do something like that. And you're like, again, nothing against Baptist, but I don't think my 6-year-old or my 8-year-old is old enough to like make decisions like that. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have anything to do with hate or discrimination against religion at all. It just isn't something you need to be teaching to little kids or convincing them about how to live. Let's teach them math. Let's teach them communication skills, right? But that's how they've treated in schools. Like, parents don't necessarily want their kid to come home thinking that their little boy, because he picked a pink crayon to make his sign, well, maybe you're a girl. It would be okay if you're a little girl, right? It's like, why are we doing that to kids? But then they just go, well, you're anti-trans, and now you're demonized in that way. It's like,
this is the first time in my life that I had conversations about pulling my kid out of school.
Yes.
Right now, I don't have those conversations now that we moved back here, because like I know how the schools work here, and I'm friends with administrators and things like that. And so I know that, like, at least as of right now, like that isn't going to happen. And I'm actually bringing on a friend of mine who actually was my daughter's principal at the school here. And he is kind of going on a journey of going out and doing public speaking, and like wants to teach better leadership and all this kind of stuff. And like has been in the educational system for a very long time, but is not your traditional, you know, left-wing educational, you know, person. And I'm having him on. I'm actually trying to get him to come in tomorrow to do an interview, but because I know him and I know the quote unquote values that are in this community, like I feel okay still sending my kid to school. But I was starting to get to a level of afraid because I didn't know what was happening at the school. To your point, I didn't know what was being taught. I didn't know what was being shoved down somebody's throat. When I went to school, there wasn't really an agenda, right? You were just there to learn the things that you needed to learn to be able to operate in life, and then possibly go to college and maybe get a job. And like they used to teach you how to balance your fucking checkbook, right? Like, and I understand nobody has checkbooks anymore, but what is a budget, and what is, like, what are those things, that those actual like life skills that you need to have, not I have some type of a political agenda that I need to be teaching your child, right, wrong, or otherwise, right? Like, it's not my job to teach your child. If you don't agree with the things that I believe in, I shouldn't be shoving that shit down your kid's throat either. Right. And it was the first time that I remember, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff online now that you'll see of when people are like, 30 years ago, the homeschool kid was the fucking weird kid. Right. And
now
I mean,
we're
and I
doing
believe that for years and years and years, right? Because like, why would you pull your fucking kid out of school, weirdo?
Right.
Like, they need to be social and be around people and like extracurricular activities and all that kind of stuff. And now it's like completely the opposite, because anymore kids that are in schools, like in big cities, at least, it's so politicized and such an agenda.
Yeah.
They're not being taught anything about real life stuff. It's like they might as well be in their first year of poli-sci at university.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
At
And yeah, at Berkeley, you know what I mean? Or wherever, even if you're at what's that super conservative college on the East Coast? Oh my God, it's in Liberty, right? Liberty University, super fucking right-wing conservative college, like crazy right, probably, right? Yeah. I wouldn't send my kid there either, right? But even if I did and I chose to, because that was my belief system, at least they're at an age where they can make decisions. They're at an age that they can read and hopefully make decisions for themselves and learn.
Yeah.
When you're 9, you fucking can't.
Right.
And if you think that you can, then you're retarded.
Right.
Like there's something wrong with you. Like I think that's science.
Yeah. Trust the science.
Well, right? Like that's science. Like brains aren't developed until a certain fucking age to be able to make cognizant decisions.
It was fascinating to me to watch. And I don't have kids, by the way, right? But like I was one.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I've been a person that went through puberty as a teenager and felt weird in my body and all that. Like that's a normal thing. And the fact that we are allowing minors, children, to have life-altering, irreversible sex change surgeries and hormone blockers when they're not even old enough to get their nose pierced.
Right.
Without parental consent, they're allowed to get these crazy surgeries. That is heartbreaking.
Can't drink or vote.
You can't drink or even vote or rent a car. You can't do any of those things, but you could cut your boobs off.
Right.
You can cut your dick off.
Right. That's insane.
Fucked up. Now, I saw something, this is going to trigger a trigger warning.
Trigger.
I saw something the other day and I was like, holy shit, this is so accurate. It was like gender mutilation is like the new lobotomy. Think about back in the day, like 100 years ago, whenever, when they were performing lobotomies for everything from PMS symptoms. Like if a woman, they were called hysteric, right? You had hysterica if you're a woman on PMS and you're like overtly emotional.
No, they're not wrong. Yeah.
I've been there. Gosh, we could talk about the poisoning of birth control, hormonal, I can't say the word, help me, hormonal birth control.
You got it, yeah. Congrats.
Right, thank you, that was really hard for me to get to. But they would give you a lobotomy, right? There were lobotomies for all sorts of things. That was just like a go-to thing. It's like chip away a little piece of your brain
Shock
and
therapy.
dumb you down. Exactly.
Yep.
If you were gay, you would get a lobotomy, right? They would try to convert you, like heartbreaking stuff. Well, now, fast forward, and we have children who maybe a little boy wants to wear his sister's dress to school one day. Now we're convincing him that he's in the wrong body, right? Or like you have a girl who's uncomfortable. She developed breasts before some of her students, and boys are noticing her. She feels really uncomfortable. She doesn't want people to notice.
Right.
Maybe you're a boy. That's insane.
Yeah.
And we're mutilating children's bodies because of those very normal rites of passage, like going through puberty, right? Or liking different things. And it's so ironic to me because this is supposed to be like the party of like love and acceptance, right? Self-love, love yourself. They even have like love yourself at any weight, right? Like Lizzo type stuff. And yet if somebody, right?
Sorry, did you see the South Park thing?
I don't know if I did. I know.
They had an Ozempic episode.
Oh God, no, I haven't seen
and
it.
When they did, and if you couldn't get Ozempic, they'd give you Lizzo.
Oh God.
Sorry, you got to go watch it if you haven't seen it. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
God bless
yeah.
it. That's so funny. I really have not watched that much South Park, but I
haven't either. Like this one just got sent to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, I have to watch it." I just remember religiously watching it, like in college. But yeah, anyway, if you haven't seen that one, it's really funny.
That's so funny. But yeah, it's like instead of being like, "Hey, love yourself," like if I had a child that felt like they were in the wrong body, which by the way, that was not something that existed when you and I were kids, right? Like where are they getting these ideas? And I'm not to say maybe there's some one-off cases, something like that, but it's like instead we're saying maybe you were born wrong, like your body's wrong.
Right.
You can't love yourself unless you mutilate your body. That's a complete opposite messaging, right? That's not self-love and acceptance, So it's really fascinating. But like so I've struggled with eating disorders for like a decade and a half, okay? There are times over the last 15 years that I would be normal weight. I would look in the mirror and I see Danny DeVito. I feel fat, right? If I went to the doctor,
Poor Danny.
I'm sorry, bud. No offense. If I respectfully, Danny DeVito.
Yes.
So if I went to a physician and I said, and I was in this body right now, okay? And I was like, I am fat. I hate my body. I want gastric bypass surgery. I want you to staple my stomach so I can't eat that much. And I want liposuction in my thighs and my stomach. And if they said yes to that, that would be a crime, right? Mm-hmm. What would be wrong with me then? It's not that I'm fat. It's that I have a mental illness. I have body dysmorphia, right? Why are we not treating people who literally look in the mirror? A full-grown man looks in the mirror and says, I'm a woman. I insist that I'm a woman. Why aren't we treating that like the mental illness that it is, right? And that's not shame. I'm not shame. And by the way, I want a full disclosure. I don't hate anybody. If you struggle with something, like I've struggled with body image in a very, very similar way that somebody who says that they're trans, right, feels like they're in the wrong body. I have felt like I've been in the wrong body, right? But it's like, why are we affirming the mental illness instead of treating that? Like, hey, dude, you're not in the wrong body.
Yeah, I think that, and I think the trigger that comes with that too is that we have come very far as a people, right? Because if you go back 30 years, right? Yeah. People would say that somebody that was gay had a mental illness. Right. 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 And I think that we can probably all agree that that is not
that's crazy.
The case, right? Like that's fucking insane.
You like who you like.
You like who you like. You love who you love. Right. And I think that I think if that's not explained, that then that gets understood as like, oh, you just think that anybody that disagrees with you has a mental illness. You know what I mean? Right. I think that's I think it's important to bring up because I think that this is different because it's is it because it's genetics? Is it because that it's like it's actually, you know what I mean? Like it's chromosomes. Right. Right.
Like, it's saying you're something that you're not. If somebody says they're gay, I believe you. Right. But if a man says I'm a woman, sorry, bud, you're not. Yeah, that's like a very objective thing. Yeah, right?
but I think then people lump those things together. Yeah, and I don't think it's I don't think it's the same thing. I don't think it's the same community. I don't think it's the same. Not at all. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't say I think that. I know that. I know that it's not. Right. But people do that, and then they start calling you names again. Yeah. Right, because then you're not even transphobic. You're homophobic. You're all these things. It's like, no, that's not what I am. Yeah. Like it's just we're having these. I don't know. Yeah. It gets really frustrating because I feel like none of us can have these conversations unless we're sitting in a room alone. Yeah. Where we don't feel fearful of the judgment that's going to come to us. And I don't think that that's fair either. As long as you're not being hateful, because here's the thing. There are hateful people.
For sure.
Right? Let's all just acknowledge that, right? Yeah. There are hateful fucking people out there, right? There are racist people that literally just hate you because you're a different color than they are, right? Yeah. I think that those people have a mental fucking illness.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I think there's something fucking wrong with them to actually hate, like truly hate somebody because of who they are.
Have you ever met somebody like that though? Like genuinely? Maybe like an old man or something on it. Yeah. Like I personally have never.
I mean, you do live on a hill, but
not my whole life.
I'm trying to think because that is a really good question. Because I mean, we do kind of live in our bubbles though. Right. We do live in our bubbles a little bit. Right. And I don't go spend time in, the fucking hills of fucking Mississippi, and you know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
I don't know. I mean, to your point, I've definitely met mean old motherfuckers that like genuinely fucking hate people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think that 100% does exist, but I think it's the exception rather than the rule today.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right. I think to say that just because you haven't met one doesn't mean that they exist. I think that's obviously not accurate.
100%. I'm not saying they don't exist.
But I think that it's the exception rather than the rule. And when everybody gets lumped in to that exception is where it's not fair.
That's what I'm saying. There seems to be like, my point is it feels like we're being told. Yes. The messaging is that it's a massive issue and there's white supremacy.
Everywhere.
Transphobia.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere.
And somehow everybody is that. Like if you're just like a right? Like I said earlier, I made a joke. I was like a regular vanilla ass, white, straight conservative type
Me.
person. Right. You.
I'm the most hated fucking demographic on the planet.
And you know what? It's so funny. If I was a liberal, I would be in the most loved, but because I'm like more conservative leaning, now I'm like the most hated, right? Like I'm privileged. I'm privileged is what I'm called.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just fascinating.
Well, because they think that you have a mental disorder though too. Because how could you believe some of the things that you might believe being in the, you know what I mean?
The brainwashed one.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fuck.
And we're all a little bit brainwashed.
We're all brainwashed.
Yeah,
like
sure.
to be fair.
100%.
Yeah, we are.
Of course. We're all influenced, and we all have the potential to be creating some echo chamber type stuff, and you know, like that's just going to be a problem.
And I hope that it's noticed not only by you, but by like everybody that's watching too, is like whenever I love having these kind of conversations, but if you've noticed, like I always try to bring it back a little bit to make sure that we're always still identifying the other point of view.
For sure.
In that sometimes that it is justified, because back to the freedom of speech thing, there's going to be a day where people are going to think that I'm fucking crazy as well. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And I want somebody to stand up and be like, no. He's got the right. Let's talk. Yeah. Let's listen. Let's have a conversation about it. Right. And I think, to be honest, I need to do a better job, because I haven't done this yet. I need to do a better job of bringing somebody in that is completely the fucking opposite of me and you and all the other people that I associate with, to be able. Now, I think that's going to be hard because most of those people don't want to have an open conversation.
Right.
But I'm sure I can find somebody. Right. And I think that I need to call myself out. I think that that's really important, because I preach this all the time when I have these conversations, but I haven't really done a good job of facilitating it. So like maybe I need to do a better job of facilitating that, and I'll bring on some fucking, like, I want to bring on somebody who's as reasonable as me to be able to have the conversation, but that has completely different viewpoints on everything, right? And not with an intention of I'm going to convince you that you're wrong and that you're not going to try and convince me that I'm right, but we're going to have a curious conversation about tell me why growing up made you feel these things and feel this way. And I'm going to do the same if it's okay with you. And then we're going to talk about that. Right. Because I think that people would get a lot, because this episode is going to get a bunch of motherfuckers that agree with us.
Yeah.
Right. And a bunch of people that don't necessarily, to motherfuck us all day long. Yeah. Right. Like we're going to trigger both sides, but like, I don't know if anything will actually get I don't want to say accomplished, but like, I think that would be really interesting. Yeah. I'm not trying to shit on our interview. I'm trying to, you know what I mean? Because I think that this information is all extremely important, because I think that everybody needs to realize how much our rights and our things and our money and everything else can be fucking just taken from us because somebody just says, fuck them. Yeah. We can do whatever we want because we're the government, or we're the pharmaceutical lobby, or we're this or we're that. Fuck you guys. That's bullshit. Right. Yeah. But I do need to do a better job, and I'm going to start researching this afterwards, but and even make it a roundtable. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Have me, have you, you know what I mean? Like have 4 dissenting opinions. Yeah. Right. Like at a round table to have a real conversation. Right. Right. That isn't full of hate, that isn't full of judgment
or emotion. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's even possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? Cause like we have emotion on our side.
I just mean like it's difficult, I think, because I wouldn't have been able to be this person 4 years ago. Right. Right. It's like where you get so triggered that everything just becomes there's no productive conversation. I'm not able to understand your point and you're not able to understand mine.
But I feel like you are now.
Yeah.
Way better. Yeah. Cause I wasn't either. Yeah. Like I've grown as a human to be able to have these conversations, because I used to be so far leaning one way that like, I was like, whatever you said didn't make sense. And I wasn't even going to hear you out.
Yeah. I just wanted to make you wrong.
Yeah. And that's, I think what the world has become, is that I need to show you how wrong you are. Yeah. Every fucking post on Facebook is, let me show you how dumb you are. Yeah. Right. Both sides. Yeah. Right. Is all about divisiveness. Yeah. Right. And I don't think anything gets fixed across the board until we are actually able to open up this kind of dialogue, though, but with people that disagree with us.
Right.
And that we disagree with.
Right.
To be able to be like, okay, where are the similarities? We can still disagree.
Yeah.
Can we identify what the similarities, though, are in what we're trying to accomplish?
Like, what can we, that's because I've had a couple conversations with some friends that are like more left leaning, but we're like not so much so that it's like, oh, we can't even have this conversation or be friends. And so it's like, first of all, what can we agree on? Like, where are we on this topic that like, oh, because most of the time we realize that we're like here.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
We can agree on like certain parts. Like, yeah. And then maybe we come to an impasse on a certain part where we're just like, well, we fundamentally just might not agree on like this.
How to get there.
Right. How to get there.
We want to get to the same place probably.
Right.
Or damn close.
Right.
It's just what route are we taking to get there? I think is the real issue.
Like being more curious, I think is important to be able to understand. Huge. And, you know, we can go like somebody's experience, like we're talking about a few minutes ago, somebody might say, hey, I've always just felt weird. I've never felt right in my body. I'm going to understand that. Mm-hmm. Like I might be able to understand that. Right. Mm-hmm. And then we might just say, hey, and it looks like we actually agree that that's a real human experience that you might have. We also might agree that we shouldn't be pushing 7-year-olds who can't make decisions for themselves. We shouldn't be pushing that in school. And they might be like, absolutely.
Right.
Fuck yeah. And I'm like, yeah. So actually,
we agree on a lot of shit.
Now, if they grow up to be 27 and decide, you know what, I just would rather be in a woman's body.
Okay.
More power to you.
Yeah.
If I grew up and say I want to get a boob job because I would feel better with a boob job, right? I would feel better with bigger tits. That's okay for me to do. And nobody's trying to stop me. But now I don't want your taxpayer dollars to pay for it. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we are meeting in the middle ground again, right? So they're just different concepts, but people can't even.
I think we all agree on way fucking more than we disagree on.
Exactly.
Like I know that we just did 2 hours on all the stuff that we think people are crazy about. But like, I think at the end of the day, if anybody actually gets to the end of this episode, right. And we'll make sure we run clips of this. Cause that's the thing that I've realized. Nobody watches full episodes of anything anymore.
I do.
Do you? Yeah, I bet you do. But like as a general rule, I don't think a lot of people do because we live in a soundbite world, right?
We're in a 140 character world.
Yeah. And so like, I have to make sure that like, the stuff that we pull out of these episodes is like landing and making impact because most people will watch 5 clips from this episode and be like, oh yeah,
she's a bigot.
Well, no, but they'll be like, I watched your episode. And I'm like, did you? No, you just saw the clip, right? You saw 5 clips and you're like, I watched an episode, bitch. It was 2 hours long.
Right.
You know, like, and I'm not saying, I mean, cause I'm not the best at it either. I do the same thing, right? Like I go watch 10, 15, 20 minute clips of a Rogan show or I go watch, you know what I mean? Like even now I used to watch my own show religiously to critique myself all the time. And I stopped doing that, right? I watch like 20, 30 minutes because I get tired of my own fucking voice.
Yeah.
Do you hate your voice?
I used to when I started, but now it's just like, I'm so used to it. But like when I first started recording content, I was like, ugh.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's super weird and you hear it and you're just like, that's horrible. Like, why would people listen to me?
Have you noticed that you've changed your style in presenting at all over the years?
Define style.
Well, I noticed that when I watch really old material, like I talked so slow and I was like, geez, like get it out, girl. And now it's like I have so much to say that I like, sometimes I have to tell myself to slow down.
So I'm the opposite. I was too fast.
Okay.
And I actually got coached to slow down.
Okay.
Because like if you do a keynote, you've done a million keynotes as well, right?
Yeah.
And what's the thing? You write everything down that you want to talk about and then you what the fuck I just went through it.
Left.
So like I was coached very early on when I started speaking to slow the fuck down and like not and obviously watching your ums is one thing.
Yeah.
But if you replace ums with pauses to where you're actually thinking about what you're gonna say next, like people
That's a power pause.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah. And people like they lean in on a pause. And so I've went the other way because I spoke too fast and now I've tried to slow down.
Yeah.
For people. I don't know if it's for me or for people or whatever.
I think that I grew up feeling like I had to get everything out really fit. This is probably like a childhood thing. I didn't really ever have a chance to have a voice in my family. And so if I did, I had to make sure, I was ready with a like airtight court case.
Yeah.
And I had to get through it really fast because I wasn't probably going to have very much of a chance to speak. And I think now that comes in, like I'll even notice myself sometimes, like if it's an emotional topic, I feel the it's like dissociation starts to happen. I'm like, blah, 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 I'm just trying to get stuff out. And then I'm like, I can't even retrieve like the actual information that I want to talk about. So that's something I've been trying to work on is like slowing down.
So, I mean, what do you teach sales guys?
Right.
To slow the fuck down and stop spitting information and to ask more questions.
Yeah.
Right.
That's another thing. Like, I don't want to be one of those people that I get excited and passionate about talking about things that I feel passionately
100%.
about. I want to be more cognizant of like, oh, I just want to say everything that I want to say and be more patient, ask more questions. It's funny. Deshaun Bryant actually, I remember, I'll never forget him saying this. We're actually just like chatting after an event at a restaurant. And he was talking about how he talks to his sales guys and tells them like, you know, if somebody tells you, so let's say that somebody comes up to you and is like, oh yeah, well, I'm from Colorado. And you go, or I'm from Colorado. And you're like, oh yeah, me too. He goes, don't jump in right away. Like sometimes we think we're just relating, right? Like, oh yeah, me too. Like I want to connect with you. But he's like, oh yeah, you're from Colorado. Like how long have you lived there? What do you like about it? Do you snowboard? What made you want to move there? And then 5 minutes into the conversation, you know, yeah, I actually live in Colorado too. And I was like, damn. I was like, I need to be better about that.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
For sure. It's like this urge of just like, hey, I want to relate to you. I think it comes from like an innocent place, wanting to relate, wanting to find a connection, and then also being excited about like having something to say. But I definitely want to get better at like more listening, more questions, listening to understand. Rather than just to respond. But that's like
I have a whole chapter in my book that I'm writing about it.
I love that.
Yeah, it's all about listening to have the conversation instead of jumping in. And the example that I always give is like when I got sober and I started going to AA meetings, and you go sit in an AA meeting and it might go around the room and you don't listen to one fucking person in the beginning because you're just counting until when is it my turn?
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I better fucking land this. I better nail this. I want everybody to know that I'm the best kind of sober there is in this fucking room. And I'm going to show them why I should be everybody's sponsor and I should blah. And you didn't hear anything that anyone said in that room because all you were doing was thinking about what you were going to say.
Right.
And nothing got accomplished. You didn't learn anything. You had no opportunity to actually connect because you don't connect with people by fucking regurgitating shit.
Right.
You connect with people by listening to what they have to say because then they feel heard.
Yeah.
And people want to spend time with people that they feel hear them and listen to them. That is just that is science.
Right.
Like that is an absolute fact.
Yeah.
Nobody hangs out with the people that are like, man, he sure talks a lot and tells me about how awesome he is. Nobody fucking wants to hang out with that person. And I wrote a chat. Oh, and speaking of that, put a chapter of that in my book, hoping this can be launched in February. I hired this company that's helping me write it, put it together and launch it and all this kind of shit. And the title of my book is Shut the Fuck Up and Listen More.
I love that.
They sent me an email the other day that said, we spoke with our CEO and they said that is going to be extremely hard to be able to do a launch with and to be able to get to Amazon bestseller status. And so we're going to need to change the title. And I said, no, we're not. That's not a me problem. That's a you problem. I told you what the title of my fucking book was when we started this thing. This is what you put a goddamn $ in the sea. I don't give a shit.
Maybe it's just an ear for the U. Like maybe it just says like shut the fuck, but it's like F and then like an ear, or it's your head. Like maybe you're on the front of the book and your head is in front of the U and then it's like a CK.
Whatever.
Or it could just be like STFU and listen.
Sure.
Or something.
We can come up with something, people, right? Like, but the thing is like, we're not just stopping there. Like, this is my vision. This is like what I believe in.
Right.
Figure out how to work around it. Like this is the title of the book because I want to grab people's attention because we need to shut the fuck up and listen more. We need to stop talking so goddamn much. We need to stop thinking that we have to be the smartest guy in the fucking room because we don't. And you're not.
Yeah.
Because if you are, we all know the saying, you're in the wrong goddamn room, right? You're in the wrong room. So we're not growing as humans if you genuinely are the smartest guy in that fucking room. But everybody thinks that they need to be judged as something when they go into some type of environment. And sometimes, all the time, the person who is generally the smartest guy in the room is sitting in the corner and absorbing all of it.
Yeah.
And then you know what they do? They fucking chime in right when it's appropriate. And you're like, oh, fuck, where'd that come from? Right. And like, it just lands like a ton of bricks because they were absorbing everything that everybody else was saying. And they're like, holy shit, he listened to everything that I had to say.
Yeah.
We need more of that in this world. I really hope. There's so many people that have, you know, there's so many people out there that have written amazing books and all this kind of shit. And I genuinely, I didn't know why I was writing it at first, but like the more that I dig into it now and the more that I'm adding stuff and I'm writing more stories into it and I'm putting the different things into it, I'm going to be really sad, not upset, but I'm going to be sad if it doesn't get to a large amount of people to be able to impact some kind of change.
Yeah.
Like that's where I'm at now with the journey. When you first started, it's very much like an ego thing.
Right.
I feel like, and you're like, I'm going to be, yeah, I think it is like a big ego thing when you first get started. But like, if you really dig into it and you're actually passionate about the things that you're talking about, like you said, right? Like you get passionate, you're like, right? Yeah. You just want to get it all out. That's kind of why you write a book. Cause you can just get it all out.
Right.
And then people can read it at their leisure.
Yeah.
Right. And get from it what they need to. But I really, really hope that this team that I've brought on does do a good job of being able to get it out into the world because like, I feel like, none of us talk about anything new.
Yeah.
Right. Everything that we're talking about, like other people have talked about a million times, right? Sure. My hope is that the way that I deliver a message reaches different people that maybe somebody else is saying it in a different way. It doesn't reach.
Absolutely. That's the interesting thing about like even anything, right? If you're delivering a message, you're coaching somebody, you're inspiring somebody, or even marketing.
Yeah.
It's like everybody is doing that thing, but nobody can do it exactly the way that you're going to do it. And I might have heard a message. This happens to people all the time. You might have heard a message a million times. Didn't do anything. And then somebody else says it in a way that makes it click. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, that changed my life. Mm-hmm. And it's not a new piece of information, but it's the way, like, you know, there's a million fitness coaches out there, right? And people are going to watch a million, right? It's like, well, I saw Jillian Michaels and then nothing happened. And then I watched, you know, what's the P90X dude? Tony,
Sean,
whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Right. But then you saw somebody on Instagram one day, you're scrolling, they said the right thing and you're like, I'm going to get my shit together. You know what I mean? So
the example that I give of that is that I had a golf coach, an old pro at my old club. And I kept, and I'm a decent golfer. I play a lot. Like I'm single digit handicap. Like I'm a decent player. Right. And one day I started getting a case of the dreaded S word. Like I got a case of the shanks and I could not figure out how to get rid of it. And coach came up and we went out to the range and he was like, you got to stay inside. And then you got to leverage and you got to do this. And I'm like, dude, fucking like none of this. Like I can't see it. I can't feel it. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And he stopped and he looked up and he's like, okay. And he went to the shed and he grabbed a fucking 2x4. And he set the 2x4 down and then he put a ball right next to the 2x4. And he goes, don't fucking hit the 2x4. And I was like, what?
Magic.
Well, not at first.
Okay.
Because the first swing I took, I went bang and I fucking hit the goddamn 2x4 and my whole shit shook. And I'm like,
I hate this sport.
Whoa. And I'm like, okay. And then the next time I do it and like I clip it, but I didn't hit it. And then all of a sudden my brain triggered and it went, oh, that's why I have to be in because then I don't come.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, I got it. And then like third, fourth swing, I was like, okay, my swing's back. I got it. I'm not hitting the 2x4. But it was like that one little thing. That thing has been taught a million times in a million different ways, right?
Yeah.
But I had to have the fucking 2x4 thrown down so that I didn't hit the 2x4, so that I could almost figure it out myself.
Yeah, right.
If that makes sense.
I mean, again, it's like if we can be exposed to unique ways of how to think differently or do things differently, that creates like, it just gives us access to change, like the ability to change or improve. It goes back to when I told you that ex that just said that one thing when he called me out on my very half-baked brainwashed political stance, right? That one thing that he said, I could have heard anybody. Charlie Kirk could have said it. It could have been Candace Owens. It could be, nothing landed, but the way that he put that unlocked something in my brain.
This is how I want to close the episode. Give that quote again to everybody.
Yeah. So I got called out basically for telling somebody that they weren't thinking. I was saying that somebody else was telling him how to think while I was telling him how to think. And I was like, fuck. Right. Like, it was just a major blind spot, hypocritical blind spot that I had on myself. Yeah. And I was like, damn it. So something that I will say, if we can end on something powerful, something that I challenge myself to do as often as I can, and I'm not perfect at it, but if I find that I have a really strong opinion or a belief about something, I go, why do I believe that? Where did that belief come from? And is it true? And if you can't, like, it's a weird thing to do because we get so tied up with our identity being what we believe that all of a sudden, if we're, I mean, I had that experience where I was like, fuck, man, I don't know why I thought that. Holy shit. I didn't, and then I had to unravel an entire framework that I didn't even realize got built in my head. But if you're courageous enough to look at yourself and go, why do I think that? Where did I get that from? Is that even true? Is that real? Is that accurate? That changes everything. And that could be for anything in your life, right?
Yep.
So
take the time to challenge your own belief system. I think is the
and be willing to be wrong.
And be willing to be wrong. I think that's a great title for the show, right? For this episode is be willing to be wrong, right? Be willing to be open-minded, have conversations with people. And maybe you're not wrong, right? But maybe you are.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why I think we need more open dialogue like this and have conversations to, again, not change anybody's mind, but to give us insight as to why people are coming from where they're coming from. Yeah. Right. So Becca, thank you again for making this time. We laughed at home and my wife was like, well, I'll see you in a few days. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, well, last time you were gone for half a fucking day doing an episode. And I was like, I don't think that's going to happen today. Well, kind of did. Yep. 2 hours later. But that just shows you like, we're actually having a genuine, real, good conversation. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I love the fact that we got to do this again. Lucky for you fuckers that you got to participate and be part of it again as well. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to SMA Support Services. Thank you to Zen for being my nicotine crutch. Appreciate that. And tune in next time. I don't know who next time will be, but today's the only one that really matters. So thanks everybody. Appreciate you. And remember everybody to be authentic or get the fuck out. Be authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Yeah.